So this week is going to be covering MaestroDMX and FX Palettes. So as mentioned, this is today's topic, Snapshots and FX Palettes. Again, hello, I am Joseph. You see me here on the camera. Hopefully you can hear me all okay. If you can't, chime in the chat. I'll see that, and then I'll make some tweaks on my end to try to bring that audio up even further. But with today's topic, we are going to cover creating snapshots. So to start, we're going to use control within MaestroDMX to create those snapshots and override our fixture channels. We're also going to use control to link some of those overrides to multiple fixtures. So you can easily define an override on one fixture and then duplicate that across all your other fixtures. We're also going to cover creating and triggering FX palettes themselves. This is going to be using the show page to create our FX palettes. We're going to cover a basic understanding of active categories and activity ranges when generating those FX palettes. We're also going to cover adding multiple snapshots to an FX palette, where you might want to do that and where you may realize this may not be the best idea to do that, as well as covering fixture groups and FX palettes. So FX palettes override fixtures. Fixtures live within specific fixture groups. You got to make sure you're doing them in the right groups. Otherwise, you may have issues with your FX palettes. And lastly, we're going to cover a few basic demos of some setups within MaestroDMX, some basic things that you may want to do with FX palettes. That covers doing mover position recalls. So if you want to set a specific set of movers to point somewhere, to highlight a couple maybe for a first dance, or highlight a singer or performer on a stage, you'll be able to do those recalls using an FX palette. You may also want to strobe some fixtures automatically based on activity levels. So when the activity is high in a song, you may want the strobes to just fire automatically. Or you may have a fixture that is a strobe fixture that you only want to fire when there's high activity. That's one way you can do that with an FX palette. We're also going to cover blacking out trouble fixtures. So if you have fixtures that generally don't have a dimmer channel or a way to black out naturally, you can do that with an FX palette. And lastly, we're going to cover setting static colors for uplighting effects. This is more for DJs or people that are setting up uplighting at venues. You may want to set up some static colors for early on in the day. Then you'll be using that for an FX palette to set those static colors. Let's see, we had a couple mentions. Oh, my audio's breaking up. Hopefully it's not too bad. I do have a filter on here to try to clean up any background noise so we don't get police sirens and stuff in the background like we had in the previous video. Of course, not too much noise there on my end, but you may still hear some kids running around every once in a while. So I'm trying to drown that out. All right. And we're going to obviously have a Q&A at the end of the session. So if you want to chime in with any questions, maybe get some answers to some questions you have regarding FX palettes, we'll definitely stick around for a bit afterwards to answer some questions. All right. So first thing we're going to do when we are creating an FX palette is we want to generate a snapshot. Snapshots are created from the control page. You're going to click on control at the top of the MaestroDMX interface. You're going to click on the three dots on the right-hand side, right next to the snapshot dropdown. You're going to click on add snapshot. This is where you're going to define your first snapshot. You'll get a little pop-out window that's going to say name and description. Pretty straightforward. Name the snapshot, something you can remember easily, and write a description if you need to. Now within our snapshot, once we've created it, we're going to have the option to override our fixtures. So first thing you're going to want to do within the Maestro interface, you're going to want to choose the fixture you want to override via the menu on the right-hand side. You also want to make sure, or the menu on the left-hand side, you also want to make sure on the right-hand side that you have the snapshot selected that you just chose. When doing a snapshot override, you also have the option to preview it live. There is a little eye icon in the right-hand corner there. When you click on that, it will start flashing yellow. That icon will let you know that you are live previewing your changes. So if you make changes to your fixture, they will be made live as long as you have that fixture hooked up. So once again, make sure you select that fixture to override using the drop-down on the left. Multiple fixtures can also be overridden by repeating the same process for each fixture. You don't need to create a snapshot for each fixture. Your snapshot should contain your changes you want to make to all your fixtures within a single snapshot, but you can select multiple snapshots. Ensure your snapshot is selected again in the dropdown on the right. If you have your fixtures connected, once again, you can live preview those. Do make sure once you're done live previewing that you turn that live preview off. That way you don't have any weird issues or anything when you try to create the FX palette and test things. And override options will vary based on the channel type. So we have a few different types of channels. There are static channels, which are going to be your master dimmer, your static values, your laser, your strobe, your rotation, your speed, and your shutter channels. Those all have basic, simple sliders, static values. Dynamic channels will have differing options depending on the channel type. For the colors, so for your red, green, blue, amber, white, UV, all those color channels, for your dimmer channels, so not master dimmer, but standard dimmer channels. For pan, for tilt, for zoom, activity, color wheel, gobo, prism, and preset. Those are all going to have options which will have extended controls underneath. Specifically for channels that have steps within them, so gobo, prism, or preset channels, those will also have the on-off toggles based on what steps you've already defined within that channel type. Movement channels, pan and tilt channels, those are going to include width and offset overrides within those extended controls as well. So once again, when overriding fixtures, when you're making a change to a fixture value within a snapshot, that change will be highlighted in blue once you've changed it. You can also, via the toggle at the top, once you've made all your changes, there is an all or overridden toggle. If you choose overridden, that will only display the values that you've overridden within that fixture, within that snapshot. You can also reset any value you've changed. There's a little icon at the top right there. That little reset icon, you can use that to quickly revert those changes back to their original default values. Fixtures that are being overridden by a snapshot within that interface will have a light blue FX icon next to the fixture within the fixture dropdown. So if you've edited a fixture specifically for that snapshot, you will see a light blue it's grayish blue, but it's light blue icon FX next to each fixture that you've made edits to. You will also see other fixtures that have snapshot overrides from other snapshots within that view as well. Those will just have a little gray FX icon around them. So you can kind of differentiate the difference. Light blue versus gray. Light blue are ones that are active on the snapshot you have loaded. Gray are the ones that are being overridden by another snapshot. All right. So creating FX palettes. Once you've created your snapshot, you're going to want to put that into an FX palette. That is done within the show page of MaestroDMX. So first thing you're going to want to do is click on show at the top of the page. You're going to choose the group containing the fixtures you are overriding. This is a very important step. When you're generating an FX palette, make sure you create it and load it on the group where the fixture resides where you want to do the override. So if you have fixtures that you're overriding with a snapshot across multiple groups, you're going to create an FX palette within each of those groups. You're going to load it within each of those groups. That way it overrides the fixtures within the group. Common issue users make is they put it all in primary. They create the snapshot in the FX palette. They create the FX palette in primary, and then their fixtures don't override because they're in secondary, tertiary, or quaternary. So definitely make sure you're in the right fixture group when you load that FX palette in. You're going to click on the three dots menu next to that FX palette dropdown, and you're going to choose Add FX Palette. That'll bring out a pop-out window, give you an option to name the FX palette, write a description for it, as well as include snapshots within that FX palette. To add your snapshot that you previously created, you're going to click on that Include Snapshot button, choose the snapshot from the drop-down list there, and choose the active category and activity range, if applicable, for that specific snapshot. Now we're going to cover active categories here in a moment, but that is how you first initially create that FX palette within the show page. One item to note when adding snapshots, you can include multiple snapshots within a FX palette. However, MaestroDMX will only ever trigger one snapshot at a time within an FX palette. So if you have multiple snapshots listed, it will only ever trigger one of those. You can't have multiple snapshots within the same FX palette, within the same fixture group, triggering at the same time. So be aware of that current limitation with the interface. All right, so active categories. We mentioned that there's active categories. There's a few different options for active categories within your FX palette. By default, the default option is called default, pretty straightforward. That option will trigger whenever activity is within the activity range that you have set. You're also going to see an option for silence. This option will only trigger on silence. When there's no activity, when Maestro has detected that there is silence coming in, there's no audio coming in on that audio interface, it will trigger on silence. Silence does not have an activity slider for obvious reasons because there is no activity. So you're not going to have a slider to set for silence. There's also going to be options for kick drum and no kick drum. Those will trigger whenever your activity is within that activity range that you've specified, and a kick drum or no kick drum is being detected. So if the drum is flashing up on the top right of your screen and you have it set to kick drum, it should trigger when that drum is going as long as activity is within that activity range. And the vice versa will happen if the activity is within the range, but there is no kick drum, it will trigger that specific snapshot that you've selected. And then you're also going to have options for all of the buttons within the top of the interface. So effect, strobe, blinder, blackout, and fog. You're going to see options to trigger those snapshots based on if you have that button pressed. And again, those are also going to have those activity ranges. So you can define what activity range and if the button is triggered or not with those specific active categories. All right, so we talked a little bit about multiple snapshots. I'm going to cover a few basic kind of options that you could have with doing multiple snapshots within an FX palette and why you may want to trigger those. So multiple snapshots, as mentioned, can be included in any FX palette. However, only one can be active at any given time. When multiple snapshots are included on an FX palette with the same active category, the following rules will apply. If both snapshots are set to the same active category and they have the same active range, so activity range is the same, active categories default on both, as shown in this example image on the left. What Maestro will do is it will randomly pick from those options, and whenever there is enough of a musical transition detected, it will flip between them. So if you have multiple options in there and you want to just randomly choose an option, you could set them all to default, set them all to the same activity range, and MaestroDMX will pick and choose from those and will switch them based on transitional changes in the music. If you have different activity ranges set, so you have one activity range that's 0 to 49, so the first half of the activity, and you have another activity range that's set to 50 to 100. MaestroDMX will then choose between those based on the activity level. So as the music is playing, there is a little dot. So if you have MaestroDMX playing music and you have this interface open, you will see a little dot kind of dancing around the screen based on activity level. Whenever that dot is within the range that you've set, that range will turn green. That will show you that that snapshot should be active. And then the other one will turn red. So you'll have that option. You can see the activity. You can kind of set your ranges based on the way you want. But there's a couple examples on how you may want to have multiple snapshots within a single FX palette. And you may want to do things a little differently, whether it's just randomly trigger or whether it's trigger based on activity level. All right. So our first demo we're going to get into is going to be covering mover position recalls. So with this demonstration, we're going to have a stage, and I have my capture up. I'll bring that up here in a moment. We're going to have our stage. We're going to have some movers set up along the ceiling of the stage, and we want to position those to highlight key individuals that are performing, on that stage. So we're going to first create a snapshot to store our changes. It's always going to be our first step, create that snapshot. Second step, we're going to override those moving head, pan, and tilt channel values on each of our fixtures to position them the way we want. In this case, I'm also going to override the dimmer, the gobo, prism, and the color channels on these fixtures. And the dimmer is to keep the fixture on, fully lit, no matter what MaestroDMX is doing. We're going to override the color so that it's just a white beam. And we're going to override the gobo and prism channels to make sure there's no gobos being projected or prisms or anything that's messing with that beam. Once we've done all that, we're going to create an FX palette to store that snapshot and recall it quickly within the MaestroDMX interface. All right, let's switch over to our capture window here. And we'll actually switch over to the MaestroDMX interface first, and we'll walk you through those steps. So first thing we're going to do within our MaestroDMX interface, make sure we are on that control page. We're going to click on control at the top. That brings us to that control page. And we are going to first create our first snapshots. We're going to click that three dot over on the top right and choose add snapshot. We're going to label this one as spotlight for ease of use here. What that's going to do is that's going to immediately load that snapshot in. And now we're going to want to choose our fixture that we want to override for that change. So I'm going to grab our middle right fixture. And let me see if I can bring up my capture window. Okay, there we go. There we go. That's the view I want. So we have the capture window. We have MaestroDMX. All right. So we're going to choose that right fixture. That one's up top. Let me grab my capture video and kind of zoom that around here so you can see it. If I can get used, yep. So we have some movers just up top here. And I'm going to try to highlight my singer right there on the stage. So we're going to grab that right mover. We're going to move right down. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to override that dimmer channel as mentioned. We want to make sure that dimmer is always turned on. So we're going to click the little drop down here under extended controls. We're going to turn on extended controls and override that channel volume, just set it to 255. That's going to set our dimmer to fully lit. We're going to go down to our color channel. We're going to again pop out the extended controls for color. We're going to override that channel and leave it set as a value 0. And that should override our color channel, setting that to just white. And then we're going to go down to our gobos. We're going to turn those completely off by just hitting enable all, then disable all. That's going to shut those gobos off for us. We're also going to go and disable our gobo, our other gobo wheel. Again, just enable, disable, make sure that gobo wheel shuts off completely. Go down to our prism channel, same thing, enable, disable, make sure those prisms are completely turned off. And then we're going to start playing around with our pan and tilt values. Let me see if I can zoom this out a little bit more so I can find the mover that I've overridden here. Oh, and one step I forgot to do earlier, as mentioned, you want to preview? Hit that little preview icon. There's that mover that we're looking for. We see it's now white. It's now lit up. So always make sure you have that preview going. Otherwise, you're not going to see the changes that you're actually making. So now that I have that mover lit and visible, now I can go down to my channels and start overriding pan and tilt. Normally what I will tend to do is first I'm going to override that tilt channel because right now that fixture is pointing straight down. I can't really see which direction it's going. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to override this tilt channel, which is going to move that fixture up so that I can see it a little bit better. And then I'm going to bring that down just a tiny bit to about where I expect it to be. So we'll put it right about there. And now we're going to go down to our pan channel. And we're going to override that one. And this is how we're going to actually pan that fixture where we want to place it. So we're going to grab that pan override. We're going to drag that fixture around until we have that singer highlighted. There we go, nice and center on them. And then we do need to adjust that tilt a little bit more. So we'll go back up to tilt, bring that fixture up just a tiny bit, just a hair, or actually wrong value. There we go. Bring that up just a hair. And then we're going to go back and kind of just tweak our pan and tilt until we get it right where we want it. So there we go. We have that fixture now highlighting our singer. We've done our override on one fixture. Now we're going to do the same on another mover. And this time we're going to highlight that drummer in the back there. So I'm going to choose my middle left one this time, which is going to be right up here. Same thing, make sure our eye is selected. Now I haven't actually created another snapshot. I'm still doing it all within the same snapshot because you can do multiple fixtures within a single snapshot. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go down to this fixture. I'm going to override dimmer, crank that all the way up to 100% to make sure that fixture is lit at all times. Go down to our color channel, override our color channel, leave that set as 0, which should do a white beam as it did there. Go down to our gobos, turn those off. Go down to our other gobo wheel, turn that off as well. Go down to our prism wheel and shut that prism off. And now we just have our white beam coming off that fixture. And again, we're going to first go down to our tilt and override that so we can get our tilt up. We're going to choose that position where we want that tilt to be. So we'll find a good spot for that, right about there. And then we're going to go up to our pan channel, override pan. Again, once again, choosing extended controls, overriding channel values, turning that on, and then panning our fixture around until we found that drummer. And there we go. Now we have two mover positions set, one highlighting our singer, one highlighting our drummer. Very basic kind of layout. You're probably going to want to do more. For sake of time, I'm just going to do a couple for this one. But we have our two performers highlighted that we want to have highlighted. So now we've completed creating our snapshot. Once we've done that, we can go back up and turn off that preview. That will reset our fixtures back to the way they were. And now we're going to save this within our show page. So once on show, we're going to want to make sure we're in the right fixture group where those movers are. If you don't know where they are, you can always go to your stage to look. I have the Mac 250s set on primary. So I'm going to go back to my show page here. Choose next to the FX palette. I'm going to click the three dots and I'm going to do Add FX Palette. I'm going to name this one Spotlight. Again, just for ease of use, name it however you want there. And then we're going to hit that Include Snapshot button at the bottom. And this time we're going to choose that snapshot that we just created as Spotlight. There is an option even within this view if you want to again preview what you've edited. You can click that eye and then you'll see that live preview happen on your fixtures. This is not a toggle. You got to hold it down. Once you release it, we'll release it back. So again, you can click that button just to preview what you're about to load. Once you have that selected, set the active category as default because we want this to trigger at all times on all activity. This will be something we will save within a queue within Maestro to recall quickly back. But in this case, I'm just going to load it to live control so you can see it actually overriding those fixtures. So we have our snapshot selected. We have our active category selected. We're going to leave our activity range just set like it is. And we're just going to hit save. What will happen is MaestroDMX will prompt you. It'll ask you, hey, do you want to load this FX palette that you just created? And then you say yes. And there you go. Now you have your FX palette loaded and actively changing those fixtures. Now, once again, normally I would save this as a queue so I can quickly recall it. So I'll just throw this over in the new queue view. So we'll first throw up our rainbow kickoff. We can see, lights are just doing their normal thing. Then when we want to load in for that spotlight, we just hit that new queue button. Boom, we've switched over. We now have those performers spotlighted by our fixtures. And that's kind of that brief demo going over spotlighting of fixtures, recalling positions of fixtures, things like that. So that's one way you can use an FX palette with MaestroDMX. So we'll move back to our presentation here. We're going to do one more. We're going to do a couple more demos actually. So this demo is going to cover strobing on activity. So if you have some fixtures that are strobe type fixtures, you want to have those only firing when activity is high, and you want to do it automatically, you can do that with an FX palette pretty easily. So in this demonstration, what we're going to do is we're going to create another snapshot to store those changes for our strobes. We're going to override the fixtures we want to strobe with their specific strobe and dimmer values. In this case, I have some strobes on the stage, which I'm going to override. They have specific dimmer and strobe values that I'm going to set. And then we're going to again create an FX palette to load in that snapshot in that default category, but only during periods of high activity. So we're going to change that activity slider. All right, so we'll switch back over to our interface again here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to control. And this time we're going to create a new snapshot for our strobes. So we're going to click that three dot there. We're going to choose add snapshot. And this time we're going to call this one strobe. Pretty straightforward. Hit save. That's going to load that snapshot in. Once again, we want to remember, hit that I so that whenever we do any overrides, we're going to see those overrides live on our fixtures. This time I'm going to go over to my strobe fixtures. And those are going to be, I've already forgotten the name of them, S1500s. So we have these S1500 DMX fixtures. They're like ADJ strobes that are built into Capture. And they have two channels. One is flash speed and one is dimmer. So in this case, I'm going to choose a flash speed that I like for strobing. This will be a static speed. There's no easy way at the moment to kind of vary this speed. You could potentially set the flash speed channel to activity, and then it would flash based on activity, but you're already choosing an activity limit for that. So I'm just going to choose kind of a high rate of flash. Now, to start, we're not going to see that strobing because, again, we need to bring the dimmer up on this fixture. Once I bring the dimmer up, we're going to see that one start strobing. So let's grab that flash speed. Let's find a good kind of flash rate that we like. That looks about good to me. And we've set those two values. Now, in this case, we have 3 other strobes on this stage. To save time, because we've already set these values, we want them all to be the same, we're going to link those fixture channels to the other strobes within our stage. So down at the bottom here, you're going to see link other fixture channels. You can click that, and that will pull up channel values that match this kind of static value option here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down, we're going to find those other strobes that we have. We've already overridden this one because this is this model, but I have 4 more. So I'm going to choose flash speed for that one, flash speed for that one, and flash speed for that one. And that's going to choose the other 3 fixtures to override them. Now I want to do the same thing with dimmer. And again, we're not going to see those fixtures strobing until I override dimmer. So I'm going to go back in, choose that option, and we're going to scroll down to our strobes again, find our first one, override the dimmer channel, find our second one, override the dimmer channel, find our third one, override the dimmer channel. And now we see all 4 of those strobes are flashing away. Once we've set the values that we want for those 4 fixtures, we can again hit that I to shut those strobes off. And now we're going to go back to our show page to set this FX palette up. So click on show. And this time our strobes are in a different fixture group. So we're going to go to our stage and see where those are. Those are, oh, well, those don't matter. Those are in primary. So I lied about that one, but they are in primary fixture group. So once again, make sure you're in the right fixture group when you create that snapshot or that FX palette. Otherwise, you're not going to see it overriding your fixtures. So I'm going to click the 3 dots here on the right. We're going to add a new FX palette. This one we're going to label as strobe. We're going to, once again, include that snapshot that we just created, which is that strobe one. And again, if we need to, we can click that I to preview it to make sure we're doing the right one. That's that one right there. We're going to leave that active category as default, but we're going to play with the activity range here. And that's just to kind of bring that within a range where we want those strobes to trigger on high activity. And I'm actually going to set this a little bit lower because the music that I'm probably going to play may not get all the way up there, but we'll see it trigger nonetheless. And once again, with MaestroDMX, if you have music playing, which I will bring up music here in a moment on my interface, and then you will see that dot start moving around on the screen. There we go. So now we have music playing. That dot's kind of dancing around. We can see when it's going to trigger and when it's not. So I'm going to set this again back over to 60 to 100, and then we'll hit save. And then MaestroDMX is going to ask you again if you want to load that FX palette that you just created. You say yes. That will load in our FX palette. And now we're going to sit here. We're going to preview it because we're going to see when that activity jumps up. And then on the video, we should see those strobes start flashing. And with my luck, I would have picked a song that probably doesn't have high activity and it's never going to go up there. So let me find something that's a little bit higher energy so we don't got to wait too long. We'll see if we can get those strobes to fire. And if not, I will just play with the activity level. We'll give this a second. There it goes. It jumped into activity. Those strobes are now triggering. And once it leaves that range, those strobes are going to shut back off. And you'll also notice within your Maestro interface, the active snapshot will change from fixture default to whatever the snapshot is that you named. We'll see if we can get it to trigger one more time. There it goes. And you see now it says strobe down there within the interface. You can kind of just barely see it down there switching over to strobe. But that is how you would build a FX palette to strobe specific fixtures based on activity level. So when your activity is high, it would strobe those fixtures. Otherwise, they would just stay dormant. All right, let's go back to our presentation here. We've got a couple more to go over. This one is going to cover blacking out trouble fixtures. So if you have a fixture, like specifically a Shove Swarm 5FX, I have a few of those in my possession. I'll show you here on camera in a minute. But those fixtures do not black out naturally with MaestroDMX. You have to do an FX palette or tinker with it a bit to get it to black out naturally when Maestro is calling for a blackout. So in the case of blackout on silence, you could do that with an FX palette, or in the case of hitting that blackout button within the Maestro interface, you can do that as well. And this is a case where we're going to have multiple snapshots loaded within a single FX palette, one that triggers on blackout button and one that triggers on silence. And that'll be our generic blackout FX palette specifically for that fixture. So in this demonstration, we are going to create another snapshot. Every single time we want to override and do something differently, we should create a snapshot for that. We're going to override the fixtures we would like to black out based on silence or based on the blackout button press by setting specific values on that fixture to basically essentially turn that fixture off. We're going to again create an FX palette to trigger on those specific blackout categories, which will be on silence in this case and on blackout button press. And as mentioned here, optional. If you want to do a blackout specifically to blackout on silence or on that blackout button, you would just make sure you add multiple entries within that FX palette, one to trigger on the blackout active category and one to trigger on the silence active category. All right, so we're going to bring this back over. And in this case, I'm going to do MaestroDMX and my camera view here because there's nothing in capture because I physically have the fixture right here in my possession. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that fixture on in my interface because I have it shut off because it is very blinky and annoying because it's not blacking out naturally. So let me go to my stage. We'll turn that fixture on. And now we'll see it's flashing away and doing its fun stuff. You can kind of see it on camera here doing stuff, even though there's no sound. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my MaestroDMX interface, go over to Control, and we're going to create another snapshot. This one we're going to call Blackout. Once we've created our snapshot, we're going to hit that little eye preview to preview what we're doing. We're going to go down to that specific fixture that we want to black out. And that is, again, going to be that Swarm 5FX. Now, this fixture, there's a few ways you can do this. The way that I've found to be the easiest with this specific fixture, and obviously look at your fixture manual, find ways to shut the fixture off if there's an option. What I generally do is I go to this automatic programs and I set it to 0. And essentially what that's doing is that's putting the fixture into a off state. So right now this fixture is off. It isn't doing anything. If we'll bring it over here. There we go. If I hit that eye icon again to turn the preview off, if I can click on it with my mouse properly, because my screen's being a little wonky. There we go. It's now doing its thing again. Hit the eye icon, now it's blacked out. So essentially, we've gotten this fixture to black out. It's nothing's letting up, nothing's doing anything on this fixture. So we've built our snapshot specific to this fixture that we want to for blackouts. So we'll hit that eye again, set it back down for a moment. Now we're going to go to the show page to create this FX palette for blacking out the fixture. Now, once again, we want to make sure we're editing in the right fixture group where this fixture lives. In this case, if I did it properly, this fixture should be in, well, it's in primary. We're going to move this to a different group just to show this example. So we're going to put it in secondary. Go back to our show page. We're going to click on the secondary tab this time, and we're going to generate our blackout FX palette. I've already created one in here, but I'm just going to create a new one just to show the full example. Label that as blackout. We're going to include our snapshot. Again, we're going to find that blackout snapshot. And again, if we want to preview that, we hit that little eye to preview that our fixture is naturally blacking out. Hit that eye, it goes out, release, and it comes back on. This time, we're going to set our active category to silence. What that's going to tell Maestro is if there is no audio coming into the Maestro interface, it will trigger this FX palette. We're also going to include a second snapshot, but this is again going to be that blackout snapshot. And this time we're going to change that active category to the blackout button. This still has an activity range, so we want to make sure that the full activity range is selected if we want to black out whenever we hit that blackout button. So in this case, we're going to have two snapshots within our FX palette. They're going to trigger based on different active categories. And MaestroDMX will black out this fixture when there's no music playing or when we hit that blackout button. So we're going to hit save there. We're going to get that prompt again from MaestroDMX. Do we want to apply that? We're going to say yes. Now that it's applied, we have music playing, so this fixture naturally is still running, as we see here on my camera. As soon as I hit that blackout button, the fixture blacks out. We no longer have any light coming off that fixture. Release the blackout button, the fixture is running again. We'll get it kind of more on the camera. Hopefully I don't burn out my laser or my camera with this laser on this thing. But again, hit the blackout button, blacks it out. Release the blackout button, the fixture starts doing its thing again. Now, the same case on silence. If I stop the music, the fixture will black out. As we see here, there's no more music playing. If we edit it, we see there's no activity. The minute I start playing music, the fixture kicks back on. The minute I pause the music, the fixture shuts off. So that's one way you can override annoying kind of FX style fixtures or fixtures that generally don't have natural ways to black them out. As long as the fixture has a way for you to shut the fixture off, by either putting it in a mode that is an off mode or by just turning down all the channel values, setting them all to 0, you can get that fixture to black out using MaestroDMX, both on silence and on that button press. All right. And I believe we have one more to go over here before we go over to our Q&A. Yep, and that is static colors with uplighting. So in the case of a DJ or somebody that provides uplighting and is using MaestroDMX along with it, you may want to set specific static colors across your lights, usually for like dinner time or like reception, pre-dancing. You want to just have static colors on all your uplights. You can do that with an FX palette. So in this example, we're going to create a snapshot. Once again, always create a snapshot for those overrides that you want to be unique across your fixtures. Create a snapshot to store those changes. We're going to choose a color or set of colors. And generally what I suggest doing is using a color generator, something that will give you red, green, and blue values. So you can set those on those channels within MaestroDMX. And we're going to override those fixtures with those specific set values. And we're also going to link channels again this way to make it easier for us. We're going to do the even fixtures. Every other fixture will be a different color, essentially. You know, 2 colors, every other fixture alternating between those 2 colors. And then we're going to finally store that in an FX palette to trigger with default active category and all activity ranges, because we want that to just go at all times until we switch the queue or until we turn the FX palette off. And in this case, I have the capture window set up we have a few uplights in the backdrop there. I'm going to zoom in a bit on those so we can see them a bit better. We'll try to fix this camera. Capture cameras are always interesting. There we go. So we have 6 of these just running across the wall here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to override every other fixture with a specific color. Let me switch back to our MaestroDMX interface with that capture window so you can see both. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on Control, which again, we're going to want to create that snapshot. We're going to hit the 3 dots at the top, add snapshot. This time we're going to call it uplights. Hit save, that's going to load that snapshot in. We're going to hit that I first thing to show those overrides on those fixtures. Then we're going to choose our first uplight. So we're going to go down through our list, find those uplights. Uplight 1 is there. And I'm going to choose a color that's kind of commonly chosen. So we're going to do like purples. Purples for one color, and we'll do like light blues for the other, just for ease of programming here. So to do a purple, red plus blue, we all naturally probably know that to make purple, we mix red and blue. So we're going to turn on the red channel. We're going to override that set red to 100%. And as we see, that fixture on the far left is now displaying red mixed colors. We're going to go over to green. Even though we don't want green, we still want to override it because we want to set green to 0. Because otherwise, if we don't override that color channel, MaestroDMX, if it's doing things with those fixtures, it will still try to put those greens in there when it calls for them. So you want to make sure you override all color channels, as well as if you have a dimmer channel or anything specific, you want to override that as well to make sure that Maestro isn't playing with those values when it's doing its normal thing with those fixtures. We're going to override blue, and this time we're going to bring blue up to 100% because we want to get that purple color going. And there we go. We have that purple fixture over there, but we also have a white channel, and again, same thing. Override that channel, even if you don't think it's ever going to get used. Override it to make sure Maestro doesn't try to throw any color on that channel and throw off your colors that you have set statically. So now we've done those 4 color channels on that fixture. We want to duplicate that to every other uplight so that every other one is going to be purple, and then we're going to go back and we're going to do the other ones and do those in that light blue color. So we're going to go to our linked channel list again, and this time we're going to choose our odd fixture. So 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, and 5 essentially are going to be our odd ones. So we'll pick channel 1 red on 3. We'll pick channel 1 red on 5 and save. We're going to go down to green, pick channel 2 on 3 and channel 2 on 5, and then click off, and that stores. Go down to blue, same thing. Channel 3 on number 3, channel 3 on number 5. Save. And then our final one, go down to uplight 3, channel 4 on 3, channel 4 on 5, and save. So now every other uplight should now be displaying purple. We still see those 3 doing their own thing because we haven't overridden those yet, but now we're going to go back and we're going to override those ones as well. So this time we're going to click our drop down and choose our even one. And as we see here too in that interface, as mentioned earlier, any fixture that you're overriding with that active snapshot will have a blue, like light blue FX icon next to it. And if you have fixtures that are being overridden by other snapshots, they will still have that FX icon, but it will have a gray background to it. So that's one way to identify what fixtures have snapshots enabled and which ones don't. So go down to number 2, wait for that to load here. And then we're going to choose our colors. This time we're going to set our red to 0. We're going to come in, we're going to do our blue and set that to 100% to get that blue going. We're going to go into our green, set that, but leave it set as 0. And this time we're going to mix in a little bit of white with that blue to kind of lighten it up a bit. And we'll get kind of that lightish blue color going. And as we see there, now we have that kind of lightish blue going on that fixture second in from the left. Once we've had all those channels set the way we want, we're going to link those to those other fixtures. And this time we're doing those fixtures that are the even numbered fixtures. So we did 2. So now we're going to do 4 and 6. Same thing again. We're going to go down to green. We've already done 2. So we're going to do 4 and 6. Go down to our blue channel. Once again, choose number 4 and number 6. And finally, our white channel. And once again, choose number 4 and number 6. And now if we look at our capture window, we should see those uplights all doing the colors that we specifically set, which are going to be those purples and kind of those light blues across the back. Once we have that set the way we want in our preview, we turn our preview off. If I can click on the button again, sometimes this window gets a little finicky. There we go. Preview is now off. Now we're going to go back to our show page to set up that FX palette. And once again, make sure you're doing it in the fixture group where those fixtures live. In this case, I have my uplights in quaternary. I just renamed it to uplights. So I'm going to go to the uplights tab here. Under FX palettes, I'm going to add a new FX palette. This one I'm going to call uplights. We're going to include the snapshot that we just created for our uplights. And once again, if we want to preview to make sure it's working correctly, hit that preview button, then we'll see that override happening across those fixtures. Choose that snapshot. We're going to leave that active category once again set as default because we want this to always be active when we have the FX palette loaded, and make sure that activity range is always set to 0 to 100. Hit save. Then we're going to get that prompt again. Do we want to load that FX palette in? We'll say yes. Load it in, and now those uplights are being overridden by MaestroDMX, by that snapshot and FX palette. So that's one way you could set your uplights to different static colors. As mentioned, using a color picker will help kind of go through that process. Simple color picker RGB, you can look online, choose your color, and then all you need to do is grab those RGB values that you see within the interface and set those values on the red, green, and blue respective channels. So that's one quick way you can kind of find the colors that you want, grab those values, and just set those channel values on R, G, and B within the control interface. And that will allow you to set those custom colors across those fixtures that have RGB channels and allow you to do custom kind of colors statically set on uplighting, at a venue space, against the wall, things like that. So great use for FX palettes within MaestroDMX. And that covers all of the stuff we have for our demonstration today. Let me get back to our main presentation window and the camera here. So we are now on to our Q&A. All right, so let's see. Do we have any questions in the chat? Reading back through the chat here. All right, how accurate is capture? Depends on your fixtures, what type of fixtures you have, if they're in there or not. So yeah, definitely capture is useful for doing testing as long as your fixtures are all in there, but I can't always guarantee that they're going to all be within capture. So sometimes it's better just to have them hooked up. But for the ease of this presentation, we did it in capture versus having a whole bunch of lights running behind me and a bunch of different cameras. So that made it a lot easier. All right, yep. People answered that one, it looks like. Yep, so editing extended controls over standard controls on your snapshot. What's the difference? So when you go to edit specific stuff within MaestroDMX, you're going to find a few different options within control depending on that channel type. So in the case of movers, we'll go down to those movers again, those Mac 250s. If it's a static value channel, so something that's just a static value like master dimmer, shutter, strobe, things like that, it's just going to have a slider. There's not going to be extended controls on those types of channels, so you just move the slider, that overrides it. If it's a dimmer channel, something that specifically is changed by Maestro, you're going to want to edit extended controls for that. Same thing with red, green, blue, all the color channels. You'll get a bunch of different options. You'll be able to mess with smoothing or output range. So if you want to maybe just override the output a bit, bring your fixtures down, but let Maestro still blink them away, bring that output range down, and then it will limit how bright those fixtures get with a snapshot. On channels that have steps, so gobos, prisms, preset channels, things like that, you're going to get toggles for any of the steps that you have set. You can toggle them on and off. This is a great way to maybe override a fixture and turn off certain gobos, turn off prisms at a certain time. You can build an FX palette to do that. But you can also, same thing, extended controls down at the bottom. Just hit on and just leave the value set as 0. And that'd be, setting that first value open. Most of the time with gobos, it's like open. But you can also manually override the channel value as well. Or you can just turn all those toggles off. And then on pan and tilt, you have the standard sliders for width and offset. And this is going to be more useful if you say want to limit or broaden how far those movers move or change their kind of start position. I generally don't suggest editing these if you want to do position base. If you do position base, you can bring width all the way down to 0 and then play with offset to do that. But it's a lot easier in my eyes just to turn on the extended controls and just play with the value there. But whatever works best for you is always a good way to do it. But if you want to do position based, you got to bring the width down to 0. Otherwise, Maestro will keep moving that fixture, and then play with the offset to position it. But otherwise, that's where you're going to have, differences between extended controls versus just editing values within control itself. Let's see. All right. Be great to have a training session on how to set that. I'm guessing Maestro, how to set Maestro up. Maybe that'll be something we could do as like a how to. We'll have to note that down, like just a kind of from unboxing to ready to go kind of live presentation. Let's see. Question in regards to movers and FX palettes. Would it be feasible or even possible to set up multiple snapshots with different mover positions and then set up a different activity level for each of the snapshots to try and get the movers to do something other than the default movement? Just wondering if you could almost make a pattern. So yeah, that is a way you could do it. You could even just have positions set within, and then all have the same active category and the same activity range, and just override positions that way. And then the fixtures would snap to those positions whenever Maestro notices a musical change, and it would change, but it's going to be random. Sometimes it'll choose the same position, sometimes it'll choose a different one. So it may not be the best way to do kind of a different kind of look. But other thoughts you could try also with FX palettes is maybe override just tilt, but leave pan unoverridden. And then what will happen is the fixtures will sweep because the tilt will be set statically, but then they'll still sweep back and forth because Maestro will be overriding the pan value still, or vice versa. Leave tilt unchecked, but then override pan, so that they'll always be at a certain position, but then they'll be sweeping up and down. So that's one way you could kind of override movers, things like that, if you want to make them do stuff different than what Maestro does with its patterns and still get some different looks. So you can get like, the sweeping looks back and forth and up and down by just overriding either pan or tilt and just setting them to a static value, and then let Maestro handle the other channel. So that's another way you could kind of change up movers a little bit if you wanted to. Yep, so Robin talked about Maestro setup. Probably a good idea to do that on 1.5. I do like that idea. So maybe when 1.5 comes out, we'll do a live demo of 1.5 and all the fancy new things that are going to come with it. All right. Yep, and it looks like Robin mentioned the same thing that I just did. So yeah, set up snapshots to reduce width, tilt, things like that to make sweeps and different movements. All right. Can you take a minute to explain how Maestro uses individual versus grouped palettes? So you're referring to color palettes? What are we referring to specifically, Ryan, with your question? I'm thinking it's regarding color palettes, but I could be wrong on what you're asking there. I'll give you a second to respond. Hopefully my video is not too far off on the reading. Color palettes. All right. Let's see here. So how does it differentiate individual color palettes or grouped color palettes? Okay. So when you are loading a grouped color palette, so a grouped color palette is going to contain a bunch of different colors within a group, and Maestro is going to switch between those color palettes whenever there's musical transitional changes. Sometimes it will then pick a different color within that group to use. When you have an individual palette with a bunch of different colors within it, so in the case of like these palettes down below, where you have like these rainbows, these mixtures of colors, Maestro will stay within that palette and switch between the colors within that range based on, musical transitional changes, things like that. When it's trying to call for color chases, different kind of looks, it may draw multiple colors across those fixtures, depending on how many pictures you have. But the difference would generally be if you have a single color palette that has a bunch of colors in it and you have that one selected, Maestro is going to stay within those colors within that palette. If you have a grouped color palette, Maestro will stick generally within the colors within the color palette that it shows within the group. But then when it has a musical transitional change, things like that, it may then choose a different color palette to play with, which will have a whole another slew of colors within it. So that'd be a way to have you maybe have a bunch of different looks, different types of colors that don't blend well in a kind of rainbow look where it's just one bar, but maybe you have a set of like high saturation colors, and then you have a set of rainbow colors, and then you have a set of like pastel colors, and you want to switch kind of between those and have Maestro do it naturally. You would create a color palette group that would contain those three palettes within it, and then load that group up into your live view or into your queue itself, and that way Maestro would choose and pick and choose between those different colors. Yeah, and Robin answers, yep. So higher the activity, the more it uses the right-hand colors. We'll use the colors on the left during low activity. So depending on your color types, your patterns that you've chosen, it will do different things with those colors as well. And yeah, 1.5 release. No official announcement yet has been made for that. Look out for that posted to the Facebook group as we steadily approach end of year and quarter 1 next year. I believe current estimate from the team is quarter 4 or this year, quarter 1 next year. So we're in that window for quarter 4, but again, no official announcement's been made yet. You may anticipate seeing that beginning of next year. So look out for that. They will post, they will alert people to that update being available. They'll probably do an early beta test first and then release it out to the general public afterwards. All right, we'll give it a couple more minutes. We went a little over, but that's perfectly fine. Give a couple more minutes for any final questions before we wrap up for this presentation. And hopefully those of you that were watching found this intuitive and helpful. And those of you that are going to watch this recording later, hopefully you also enjoyed it as well. But, definitely feel free to post in the Facebook group if you have questions right within that thread, or feel free to just open a ticket. Support@MaestroDMX.com is the best way to reach us for a ticket. And we also, once again, have those live office hours. If you ever want to join, you ever need help, you're ever struggling with anything with MaestroDMX, definitely check out live office hours. We're going to be available on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I believe that is 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern. But check the website for those official times posted. There'll be a Zoom link there. You can just join via Zoom. You can call that Zoom number or join via video chat. Video chat's the best way because we can see you. We can see your setup. If we need to help troubleshoot, we can visually see what you're doing. But definitely check out live office hours. Very useful. We're always here to help. And if you can't reach us during those, open a ticket. We'll definitely respond to you then. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Michael. There's the live office hours link. Definitely check that out if you haven't yet. And with that, I don't see any other questions. So we will wrap up this presentation for the day. Again, thanks for hanging out with us. There will be a recording of this posted after, once it gets processed. And look out for a message from us for the next live Q&A session in October. All right. You guys all enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you here in about a month for the next live presentation.